Bruce Willis entered a nursing home on August 15, 2025. His family spends $200,000 annually to protect him. In Die Hard, the man who used to shout over the guns is now unable to speak. But that's not the worst part. Emma revealed something she had been keeping hidden for years. Bruce was just being cool in her eyes. His brain was steadily decaying, but she was unaware of it. He had been suffering from cancer for a long time before anyone realized it. What his family discovered will make you cry. On March 19, 1955, Bruce Willis was born in Idar Oberstein, West Germany. His mother was German and from Kassel, and his father was an American soldier who had been assigned there after the war. From the beginning, Bruce's life was divided between two cultures. He was surrounded by the recollections of a recent conflict because he lived on a military base. He was caught between German tradition and American law. When he was just 2 years old, things started to shift for him. The entire family moved across the water to New Jersey in 1957, after his father left the service. Suddenly, Bruce had changed from the German boy. In a harsh American neighborhood consisting of struggling families and factory workers, he was just another child. His father worked with metal, and his mother held part-time jobs at banks. They didn't have much, so Bruce felt like he didn't belong anyplace. As the 1960s rolled around, he started to feel awful about something. Around age 6, Bruce had a terrible stammer. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't. He would make an effort to speak, but his voice would never be clear. The children teased him and gave him the cruel nickname Buck Buck. To defend himself, he fought back with his hands, flailing them everywhere. However, the embarrassment of his inability to speak clearly kept returning to him. Sometimes it took him minutes to pronounce a single word. It caused him to lose confidence in himself. School had already become a battleground when he was 10 years old. In addition to hurting, the stammer made him feel isolated. Perhaps high school was the final straw. He skipped class so he wouldn't be called upon. In addition to delivering a speech, he made jokes about other people. However, he took a gamble and joined the acting club at the age of 15 in the early 1970s. Then something incredible occurred. As soon as he took the stage and began reciting his lines, it vanished. It was like magic. He spoke clearly and openly without fear. For the first time, people listened. The educators were taken aback. When Bruce transformed into someone else, he found that the words came naturally. His voice returned as a result. When they discovered it, everything was different. He was in charge of the student council by 1973. The fact that some children were still making fun of him didn't bother him. Now that he had found it, he felt alive. In 1975, while studying theater at Montclair State University, he also received speech therapy from 2 instructors. He benefited much more from this. But by 1977, Bruce was sick of school. In search of something greater, he left school and headed straight to New York City. He had no friends and no money, so he worked long hours as a bartender to make ends meet. Sometimes he had to sleep on couches or in tiny houses. But he did make folks chuckle. He got to work on a sled. He played the harp for money. He transformed the bar into a stage. Those were turbulent, difficult years. He was rejected over 100 times in his first year. However, he gradually began landing roles in off-Broadway productions. His first significant part was in the drama Heaven and Earth in 1977. Despite the lack of funds and repeated rejections, he persisted. He occasionally had to sleep on benches when conditions became difficult. However, he started to draw attention. He had brief appearances in advertisements and motion pictures, and he had a moment with Frank Sinatra in 1980. However, he got into a fight to defend someone one night while he was working as a bartender. He had severe nasal pain. He needed surgery immediately. Although he recovered, doctors warned that the accident might damage his voice. He returned more powerful. The scar that remained on his body gave him an advantage. At the time, nobody could have predicted that he would go on to become one of the biggest action stars in the world. However, in those worn-out, tiny pubs in New York, he created something stronger than notoriety. His friendships lasted for many years. He met John Goodman behind the counter at Chelsea Central. Small groups were astounded by the two of them's wild, spontaneous performances. Despite their poverty and meager weekly income, they were much in love. No scripts were used. They sobbed, screamed, and threw themselves into every second. Bruce eventually recovered from these difficult performances, which also gave him the enthusiasm that would eventually light up movie halls. In 1985, things changed. Bruce arrived to test out for Moonlighting, a new television program. Approximately 3,000 players, including trained actors and radio stars, applied for the role. ABC rejected Bruce 11 times, but they couldn't ignore his negative attitude, shaved head, and earrings when he returned. The fact that he improvised his words was amusing. The stranger with the stutter was suddenly what they wanted. The release of Moonlighting on March 3, 1985 catapulted Bruce Willis into stardom. The concert was expensive and a complete mess. It took twice as long to film as typical shows. Despite the 120-page length of each episode, Bruce's charm, quickness, and unpredictable nature made it a success. He had trouble getting along with Sybil Shepherd, his co-star. The set was becoming extremely tense by 1986. Before scenes, they would fight, rage at one another, and occasionally avoid talking to one another off camera. Bruce had to be transported to the hospital in 1988 after passing out from stress. The scripts arrived late. Fans continued to be captivated by their fights despite the decline in scores. Bruce was exhausted behind the scenes, but he captivated everyone when he was on camera. Bruce surprised everyone during this period by releasing an album titled The Return of Bruno in January 1987. Nobody anticipated that a TV personality would reach the top of the charts. When the record sold 500,000 copies, it earned gold. It even reached number 2 in the UK. The fact that reviewers rolled their eyes didn't bother the fans. Bruce created a memorable experience by performing with renowned soul musicians. It was strange, daring, and enjoyable, just like him. However, the labor was exhausting them. Bruce was tense while filming scenes for Moonlighting that cost over $1 million each. And there were more delays in 1987 when his co-star became pregnant. A significant writer's strike in 1988 nearly put an end to the program. On May 14, 1989, the final episode was broadcast. Bruce had taken every possible action. At that time, his name was already well recognized in Hollywood. His remuneration for TV series had increased significantly, from $1,500 per episode to $50,000 per episode. At the time, Bruce Willis wasn't supposed to be the main character. Nobody anticipated that he would play the lead in a major action film. Most people knew him as Moonlighting's lovely man. Strangely enough, however, in the late 1980s, a narrative named Die Hard was circulating across Hollywood. Among the celebrities who declined were Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Since the tale was essentially a sequel to a film in which he starred many years ago, Frank Sinatra was even asked. He passed too. Bruce Willis was surprised by the offer. His selection not only stunned everyone, but the studio was also prepared to give him $5 million. Only famous stars like Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford received that much money. The studio was viewed as insane by the business community. The majority of the film was shot at Los Angeles Fox Plaza, where production got underway in late 1987. When the film was released on July 15, 1988, nobody could have predicted how well-liked it would become. Bruce Willis became a true action star, earning over $140 million worldwide. But there was a price. When a loud bomb detonated too near him, one of the several explosives-related pranks went awry. His left ear became permanently partially deaf as a result. He remained silent at the moment to avoid interfering with his duties. Years later, however, it was discovered that the damage never completely healed, and it continued to be one of his health issues until the 2000s. Nevertheless, he gave John McClane a raw, genuine vitality that transformed everything. He wasn't exactly superhuman. He appeared to be an ordinary man going through a difficult time. It made him popular. Only a year later, Bruce took a risk that nobody anticipated. He consented to voice a charming little girl who talks in the film Look Who's Talking. The surprise wasn't simply the idea, despite the fact that it sounded like a joke. He earned it by hard effort. For just 4 days of speaking, he earned $10 million. He was able to receive a portion of the profits due to a clever transaction. Despite only costing roughly $10 million to produce, the film brought in nearly $300 million worldwide. His voice was sweet and sardonic, appealing to people of all ages. He earned an additional $10 million from the second film, which became a series. Not only was he fortunate, but everyone could see that he was intelligent. Then he did something quite different. The film In Country was released in September 1989. A slow, depressing story of a Vietnam veteran in a tiny community. Bruce acquired a beard and put a lot of effort into the role. The fact that his father served in the Korean War might have given the program a more authentic feel. It received positive reviews. Roger Ebert rated it 3 stars, but no one went. The film did not earn a lot of money. Nevertheless, it demonstrated Bruce's willingness to take chances, even if it meant missing out on another hit. He had returned to his former self by 1990. On July 4th, Die Hard 2 was released. This time, Bruce was aware of his value. He received $5 million in advance, plus a portion of the profits. It earned more than $240 million worldwide, surpassing the first film's earnings. Behind the scenes, they quarreled over the film's realism. Foolish stunts were not what he wanted. The risk should be real, he believed. His attention to detail allowed him to advance in his career, and he was earning $15 million annually by 1995, when the third film was out. Not all of the things he touched turned to gold. When Look Who's Talking's sequel was released in late 1990, it did not do well. It only grossed $47 million and was not well received. Although Bruce claimed that the screenplay wasn't finished, he had recorded all of his lines in 3 days. He even filed a lawsuit against the producer, claiming that they owed him $2 million. But the case was dismissed. It was a warning that short-term financial gain did not always translate into long-term success. Then something was different. In 1994, the film Pulp Fiction was released. Quentin Tarantino cast Bruce as Butch, a fighter who was unwilling to engage in combat. The film did more than boost his sales. After that, people's perceptions of him changed. Sincere, rugged, and willing to take risks. For the part, he received $800,000, which is far less than his typical compensation. But he didn't mind. It was related to the narrative. The film won an Oscar for Best Original Script and made over $200 million globally. Even though Bruce wasn't nominated, people began to see him as more than just an action guy. He put in twice as much labor the next year. He portrayed a shattered man from a post-apocalyptic future in the late 1995 film 12 Monkeys. He shed 20 pounds for the role. He visited mental facilities to prepare. He broke his shoulder performing a stunt while filming. Still, he continued. The film earned over $160 million throughout its run and received 2 Oscar nominations. Bruce did not receive a nod to reiterate. However, his desire for the role was undeniable. He stunned everyone once more with The Fifth Element in 1997. It was bright, vibrant, modern, and crazy. In a film about a taxi driver who saves the world, Bruce starred. The film made over $260 million, although it cost about $90 million, which was a record at the time. Bruce performed all of the tricks himself. He donned his tight orange coats, which he didn't like. But in the end, everything worked out. The show was well received by many. Bruce then went on to direct the massive disaster film Armageddon in 1998. He did a great job as Harry Stamper, a tough oil driller sent to defend Earth from an asteroid. When it was released on July 1st, it was the year's biggest film. Worldwide, it earned almost $553 million. Behind the scenes, however, things were difficult. A fight broke out between Bruce and filmmaker Michael Bay about scenes that were removed, particularly the heartwarming family moments. He later said that shooting was terrible after he and producer Jerry Bruckheimer got into a dispute. Nevertheless, Bruce spontaneously created one of the film's most poignant sequences, the sobbing farewell, which aided in the film's ability to engage audiences. Despite the film's 4 Oscar nominations, Bruce took home a Razzie for Worst Performance in 1999. An odd turn for such a popular song. Bruce's private life was again in the headlines in 1989. In July, while she was still engaged to Emilio Estevez, they met at a movie theater. Just 4 months after they first met, on November 23, 1987, they were married in Las Vegas. Demi said after the fact that there was no planning involved in the wedding. While they were traveling to gamble, Bruce suggested that they be married. A month later, Little Richard served as the preacher for their actual wedding, which drew over 100 guests. Although the brief wedding only cost a few $100s, it marked the beginning of a close friendship in Hollywood. Rumor, their first daughter, was born in August 1988, precisely 9 months after the wedding, despite rumors that Demi was pregnant prior to the ceremony. Demi and Bruce had 3 daughters together. Tallulah, Scout, and Rumor were born in 1988, 1991, and 1994, respectively. They were able to manage work and home life by taking turns in film roles, but fame made things more challenging. Demi achieved a new high of $12, $5 million for striptease in 1996, but rumors began to circulate that they were both having affairs. Demi was associated with her co-stars, and Bruce was associated with models. It is alleged that during a fight on the set of a 1995 film, Bruce stormed out. Although they remained together in public, the harm was already worsening behind the scenes. After 11 years of marriage, Bruce and Demi divorced in 1998. Their marriage ended in October 2000. Although the breakup appeared to be amicable on the surface, they were secretly arguing over their $200 million fortune. Bruce gave Demi up to $90 million. It was among the priciest divorces in the history of Hollywood. They also needed to decide who would be in charge of their kids' custody. It wasn't easy, according to Bruce's acquaintances, but they remained friends for the children. Demi reared her daughters in this house in Idaho. The breakup demonstrated that even the biggest celebrities had suffered personal hardships before becoming famous. Bruce was still enjoying the popularity of Armageddon at the moment. After they parted ways, they surprisingly remained close. Demi attended Bruce's 2009 wedding to Emma Hemming. Demi also joined the family celebration in 2019 when Bruce and Emma reaffirmed their vows. In 2020, they even posted joyful photos of themselves and all the children as they were confined together in Idaho. Demi later supported Bruce following his diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia in 2023 and aphasia in 2022. The mixed family's continued unity demonstrates that marriage need not be the end of love. A woman claimed in 1992 that Bruce was the father of her child during a 1991 one-night encounter. For Bruce, this was one of the worst periods of his life. After she brought him to court, a DNA test was performed on him. The test, which at the time cost roughly $5,000, proved that Bruce wasn't the father. Nevertheless, the affair damaged his public image. This story didn't align with the perception of him as a loving father. According to reports, their marriage was under a lot of strain since Demi supported him. Everyone was startled when Bruce portrayed the lead in the 1999 film The Sixth Sense. To play Malcolm Crowe, a child pediatrician, he received $14 million. Nobody anticipated the story's turn. All along, Crowe had been dead. The film earned about $673 million worldwide and topped the charts for 5 weeks. After Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, it was the second most watched film of 1999. Although Bruce didn't receive an Oscar nomination, the role greatly advanced his career. He even created sequences to give his character more realism, and almost no one was aware of the twist. Bruce collaborated with M once more in the year 2000, Shyamalan's night for the film Unbreakable. He portrayed David Dunn, a man who survives a rail disaster and gradually realizes he might be a superhero. It was astonishing to learn that the film cost $75 million to make, far more than anyone had anticipated. This was partially due to the fact that Bruce received roughly $20 million, while his co-star, Samuel L. Jackson, received $10 million. Disney didn't like the high cost, despite the $248 million it made. Some reshoots resulted in much higher costs. Nevertheless, the film garnered a large following and eventually was adapted into a television series. However, the daring approach at the moment nearly wrecked Shyamalan's career. Prior to his fame as a movie star, Bruce had dabbled with singing. In 1987, he released a single titled The Return of Bruno. He played a character called Bruno Radalini and sung covers of popular tunes. One of the tracks that reached number 5 on the Billboard charts was Respect Yourself. In the UK, Under the Boardwalk peaked at number 2. Despite being criticized by critics, the record sold over 500,000 copies and received a gold certification. It was deemed tone-deaf by Rolling Stone, and so many others ridiculed it that Bruce gave up singing professionally in 1989. He continued to perform live at major gatherings like Farm Aid, but the criticism was extremely painful for him. In 2001, Bruce made headlines once more, this time due to rumors that he was working on the Bandits movie. He co-starred with Cate Blanchett and Billy Bob Thornton in a film. Bruce and Cate were reportedly dating, according to tabloids. When Ashton Kutcher, who was seeing another lady on set, began to have doubts about her, the allegations intensified. Demi Moore spoke about all of this in her autobiography published in 2019. The drama, which Blanchett later claimed was all lies, made it nearly impossible to market the film. Its $75 million cost was not met by the $67 million that the Bandits made. The following year, Bruce's Heart's War was a huge disappointment. During W2, he portrayed a colonel in a prison camp. The film only generated $32 million worldwide, despite costing $70 million to make. Over $50 million was lost by MGM, and